Hi, I'm Denise Hammer, and I'm so grateful that you are interested in Mercy Market and partnering with us. And it's a joy to be able to share with you the history of Mercy Market and the heart of who we are. So thanks for taking the time to watch this video. About 7 years ago, my kids were all graduating from high school. I have 4 teenagers, and they were all graduating, and I realized that I was going to be coming into a new season of life with some extra time and resources available. And at that same time, I was reading scripture again. I've been doing that all of my life. But this time I was finding verse after verse that had to do with the topic that I did not realize was so prominent from the beginning to the end. And it was the subject of God's heart for the poor and needy. I began to see clearly that not only was God interested and did He have a heart, but He was concerned about my response. And so I started to pray, Lord, what do you want me to do about your heart for the poor and needy? Verses like the ones in Jeremiah, where this was the one that really impacted me. The subject of the chapter is King Josiah, and why was he such a great king? And the answer was because he cared for the poor and needy, and that was a great thought, and it would have been a good place to stop, but it was the next part of the verse that really hit me, because it goes on to say, is this not what it means to know God? And I want to be a follower of Christ, and I want to do what is important to the heart of God. And so I started to say, Lord, how do you want me to respond? Well, time passed, a few months later, and I was down at the Rocket Burrito in Billings, Montana, with my pastor and youth pastor and their wives, and not really a place that you expect to have any great spiritual direction, but as we were talking about ministry, about options, the Lord just opened my eyes to a possibility, and it was almost a little moment, and I got a picture of selling things, and at first it was, no, I don't have any place for that, and then it was another, and finally I realized, maybe a little bit like Samuel after the 3rd or 4th time, that, well, Lord, maybe you are talking to me about starting a ministry that would sell products for women around the world and partner with them and provide a marketplace for their goods as part of reaching them with the love and the hope of Jesus Christ. And so that's where we started. Officially, our first sale was in October of 2008. Started with funds from my generous husband and a loan from our church. And we would sell a few products, and then as soon as we made enough money to order more, we would order a few more. And from that kind of rather humble beginning, we now work with 27 organizations in 14 different countries. So once we had formulated the idea, I knew that there was a group in Colorado that were selling products from women in Laos. I knew this because my mother had given me an apron one time, and I still had it, and it was handcrafted. The Hmong women in Laos had made this apron, and so I knew that this group still existed, and I had a way that I could call them. And then also my brother was the international liaison at the time for doilies from Kosovo. And so I started there. I got a hold of my brother and asked him if he knew of anyone else that was selling products. And he linked me up with the doilies from Kosovo, and then also with silk scarves from Laos. And later on, we'll tell you more of the details about some of these products, but that's where it began. And then when I called the office about the apron, then I asked them if they knew of anyone else that was selling handmade products from women that really needed an income in order to survive. And that's where we began. And now, as I said, we're working with 26 different organizations. Some of them were friends of family. Some of those have come from people that have met us in events. But that's how we have gotten a hold of the people that we partner with. So we started off with a little bit of a loan and some seed money from our church, and ordered products from just these few places. We went to a craft fair and sold, and I remember being just so thrilled with the first like $300 that we made, and the journey began. I was contacting these groups through email, through individuals. My brother Jim, I was getting the products from him. But before long, it was growing, and that was a good thing, but it was adding a load to me that I wasn't sure I could continue. And so God in His mercy brought me partners. And the first partner was Katie Loveland from Helena, Montana. I'd gone up to have a show where my brother Jim was hosting for me, and Katie was at that event and came forward, and I'd never met her before, but here was this young bubbly, vivacious gal that said she really had a heart for missions, and she'd been looking for a way, and could God maybe use her gifts in our ministry. And what an encouragement that was for me. And Katie has become she's been our designer, she's been our strategic planner. She lives 4 hours away from us, so she doesn't get to be involved in the daily things, but she's been an incredible encouragement and support, and brings a set of gifts that I certainly don't have. So as our ministry began to grow, we were doing sales. I was mostly doing all the sales at craft fairs, at churches, and one day we were having a big event in Billings at the Metra, our large arena, whatever you call that. And I asked people from our church if they would be willing to sit at the table with me, because it was a 2-day event and I knew I couldn't do it all. And a new gal, she had been coming to our church, I think for about a year. Her name was Sherry, and she came up and said that she and her daughter would like to sit at a table. And that was the beginning of meeting Sherry, and eventually her joining us. Sherry runs our internet store. This had been an item of much discussion. People were asking me all the time if we had a store on internet, and I was adamant that if we had to have a store, then we would have to shut down, because I could not run a store online. And then God brought Sherry to us, and she runs our internet, our web page, and our online store. And she lives just a few miles away, and so Sherry's been such an encouragement. She comes over, and the two of us do a lot of the pricing and the inventory and all the daily nitty-gritties that are part of making this business run. So the three of us make up the team that we now are, the Mercy Market team. From its inception, the heart of Mercy Market has been to partner with women who are in difficult situations that perhaps other groups aren't able to help. So we're looking for pockets of entrenched poverty and desperate oppression. And we're looking for partners that we can share the love of Jesus through. And so we are clear as a team in who we want to partner with, who we want to help. So for example, we work with Nightlight. Nightlight is a group that works in Bangkok, Thailand. Bangkok is one of the hubs of sexual exploitation. We heard a staggering statistic that 7 out of every 10 men that walk through the Bangkok airport will engage in the sex industry while they are there in the country. Hundreds of thousands of girls are being exploited on a regular basis. And Nightlight is down in the trenches, working with them, meeting them in the bars, establishing relationships with them, all in the name of Jesus. And that's our heart. We don't want to be just a humanitarian group, but we want to be able to share Christ's love in the midst of their suffering, and yet to give them an opportunity to care for themselves. So Nightlight is an industry. It is a job opportunity. They're not a safe house. The girls don't live there. They make high-class jewelry and earn a wage that was twice the minimum wage for Thai workers. So that's just one example of a group that is in the trenches, on the front line, that we are very credible, and so we know that the money that we give goes to the girls, and it goes to them in the name of Jesus. So those are two of the guiding principles that Mercy Market goes by when we decide who we're going to partner with. Do they help a deep need, and does that deep need be met with a way to express the love of Jesus Christ? the questions that were commonly asked is whether or not we go to the countries and purchase these products. And as a rule, the answer is no. We want to keep our overhead very low. We have about a 20% markup on the products that come to us, and that markup goes to gas to get to our sales events. Oftentimes there's a booth fee, sometimes as high as $300, and so we need a way to cover those expenses. The overhead also takes care of damaged goods, items that don't sell. And as a side note, we buy all of our products up front. That way, if the woman who made that apron does not have to wait until I sell that apron in order for her to get her money. Or if a purse comes to us and the zipper is broken, we don't require her to pay for that. So we buy all of our products up front, and that also necessitates then somewhat of an overhead. So in order to keep our overhead low, we don't travel to all these countries. However, we do see the importance of meeting our partners, and so we have traveled some. First, I was able to go to Ecuador and meet our partners that at the time were working in the El Inca Women's Prison, and we were buying products in the marketplace, and then when we brought them home we could sell them and send that money back to fund this awesome ministry that they were carrying on in Ecuador. Last year, the team, Sherry, Katie, and I, were able to go to Southeast Asia. We picked that part of the world because we had 6 partners that were there, and we thought we could get to them all in 2 weeks. It was an ambitious goal, and if we did it again, I think we would want to take a lot longer. But God in His grace orchestrated things with amazing help from folks in the country, and we were able to meet with 6 partners and see them face to face, see the women that they're helping and the women that were making the product. It was an awesome experience. We were in 3 places in Thailand, we were in Laos, and then also in Cambodia. So it is our hope as the years go on, if God continues to bless and expand our ministry, that we would have the opportunity to meet our partners, but our product line will continue to come through the mail, and most of our communication is done through the internet. We sell 2 kinds of products at Mercy Market. The first kind are the products that have been purchased in the marketplace. We go to the marketplace, or the people that we are partnering with, go to their local market and they purchase products, they send them to us, and then we are able to raise the price and generate an income to give back to them. So the first example of that are these scarves that come from the market in Chiang Mai, Thailand. Chiang Mai is one of the places that we got to visit, and while we were there we visited Remember New. Remember New is an organization that is helping girls and boys now that would be targets for trafficking. One of the things that we have learned as we've journeyed during this process is how children are targeted and they're easy prey. And so a group can go in and they can almost see in a village who would become the next victim. And so Remember New operates not as an orphanage. These children have some kind of a family member, but they have gotten permission from the family member to come to Remember New. And for me, this was one of my favorite places that we visited. The excitement of the kids, it was like being at a Bible camp or a summer camp, and we drove up out into the country, away from the city, onto this beautiful little piece of property. And first we met the boys, and that still is kind of staggering to think that boys now are also being targeted and pulled into the sex industry. But here was a dorm of boys, and they were out playing tetherball and wrestling around and laughing, and then down the way were the girls' homes, and girls were taking their showers and getting their hair done and doing their homework and just doing life. But there was such a joy and such a sweet innocence about their lives. One little girl that we saw on the campus was, I think about 4 years old, just cute as can be, sparkly little eyes and giggling, big, huge smile, and playing and carefree like any 4-year-old child should be. And we asked Elsie what her story was. And Elsie looked at that little girl and looked at us and said, we got her in the marketplace at 2.5. Her grandma was trying to sell her. It's staggering to think what the life of that child would have been like if Remember New didn't exist. The people that work with Remember knew this little girl's plight. They got a social worker involved, and finally the grandma agreed to release this child to be raised and to live in Remember New's home, and was saved from a life that none of us would even want to imagine. So it's a joy to partner with people like this that are really changing the lives of children. And part of the way they're doing that is by our funds of selling a scarf that came from a marketplace. So when we think of statistics, now we see a face, and that makes such a difference as we are trying to do our part to reach a hurting world with the love of Jesus. The second example of the type of product we sell, and probably the more common, are the products that are handmade by the women that we are helping, or the individuals we are helping. I chose this bag to demonstrate to you because this is one of the most powerful stories to me. It humbles me to hold in my hand a bag that was made by a woman whose hands touched the same material, whose life has been so devastated by corruption, by evil. The Lord's Resistance Army was a terrorist regime that ran through northern Uganda, and it would come into villages and it would slaughter the men, take the children, turn the children into sex slaves and child soldiers, would rip open pregnant women. The types of atrocities that went on are just horrific. And women are coming now out of the bushes, out of the bush villages, are coming into centers so devastated, so ruined. We can't even hardly imagine the emotional trauma, as well as the physical trauma that some of them have experienced. Many of them without their husbands, their children are still missing. But they are at a center in Uganda, and part of what the healing process is ensuring or helping do is happening through the creating of bags and purses, and the ability to work with their hands is part of the healing process. And so we are, again, just humbled, and it takes the statistic and makes it so much more personal when you touch a bag that was touched by one of these women. So when we sell these bags, we know that we're making a difference as we help Hope to One Life impact these women's lives. One of the other villages that we were able to visit when we were on our whirlwind tour of Southeast Asia was in Laos. And Laos is the country that this apron came from, the first product that I ever knew existed, made by women from another country. It has been, Kama Crafts has been in existence quite a while. It's one of the oldest groups that we work with in terms of longevity of ministry. And so it was really awesome to go into this village and see a system that was very well established. We were able to come in and observe, and it was their day to bring in their goods and get paid for them, and then also get the next assignment. And it was all very interesting to observe. We didn't understand any of the language, of course, but there were a lot of things that we understood without having to know their dialect. And one of the things that we understood was that they had a voice. And what an incredible contrast that was to women that we saw, for example, in the bars on the red light district in Bangkok. They did not have a voice. But these women, these national women in the Laotian village, they had a choice. If they didn't want to do the next project, they didn't have to. We saw what appeared to be some bickering going on, or dickering about a price and whether or not they were getting paid what they thought they should. And it was very beautiful to see that these women had the power to make choices for their economic and their families. And that is something that I had really taken for granted and did not realize was part of the things that make me a wealthy woman, is all the choices that I can make in the United States. So it was awesome to see that they could have some input on designs, they could have decision making on what kind of products they wanted to make, and then to see the beauty of the fact that these women were able to stay in their villages, raise their families in their communities, and that's part of what our ministry with that village empowers them to do. We were in another village where the leaders of the church that we were at were lamenting the fact that there's a missing generation, that so many of the young parents are not able to find jobs in their their smaller villages, that they're leaving their children with the grandparents and moving to the big cities to try to find some kind of work just to sustain their families. And that's leaving this generational gap and has so many different ramifications on different levels. So it was beautiful for us to see an organization that was working well as women were earning a sustainable living with their products. And that's one of the things that Mercy Market wants to do. We want to partner with people that are, we're not just giving them a handout and then as soon as we stop helping them, they're back in the same situation. But we're partnering with people that are working for sustainable incomes and often are teaching a skill that they can go out and use. And so that if we are not available to help at some point, they're not back in their destitute situation.
Hi, I'm Katie. Denise said that somebody else had to be in the video for a little bit, so nice to meet you guys and thank you for your partnership with us. I want to tell a story about being in the red light district in Bangkok. So we went with the nightlight staff and several times a week they go into the bars. These are bars where women are essentially on display to be selected by men who come into the bars and be prostituted. And so the nightlight staff goes in, usually with just a group of women, and sits down and orders a Coke or a water and just tries to strike up conversation with these women as they take breaks from being on the stage. And I must say it was a really difficult, dark place to be, and challenged us, I think, as the Mercy Market team about being light moving into darkness. If that's what we say we want to be as Christians, then we need to be willing to go into the dark places. So we went in just for one of these outreaches, sat down and watched the women dancing on the bar. They were numbered, all wearing similar outfits. I thought, wow, what a true objectification. These women were being treated, to me, almost like cattle. Just dancing up on stage, all looking the same so they could be ordered by number. And one thing we had the privilege of doing was when the women came down, just to kind of smile at them and see if they'd come over and talk. And one of the gals who came and talked to us, we asked her name. She wasn't just a number to us. And she told us that her name was New, and that she had a 3-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son. And it really hit me as we sat at that table that she and I were so very similar. I too had a 3-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son. And we asked her if she liked working in the bar, and her response was, how else would I be able to feed my children? And it struck me that if I was in her situation, by some strange coincidence, certainly not by any merit of my own, I grew up in the United States and I was given a college education and a chance at marrying a husband with a good steady job. But if we were reversed, if she was in my place and I was in hers, of course I would do whatever needed to be done to feed my children. And it made me so much more committed to what we do in Mercy Market, that women would not be forced to make that choice between their own dignity and the ability to provide the very basic necessities for their children. So I still think about and pray for New. I'm wearing these nightlight earrings right now because Nightlight is there, standing in the gap for these women and providing an opportunity for some of them to leave that lifestyle and make jewelry and provide another way, a dignified way, a way that is sustainable and could be used over the long term to provide for themselves and their families.
As we said before, we currently work with 26 different partners and are in 14 different countries. We've found out, though, along the way that those ministries, like all of our lives, are in flux. And so sometimes we have gotten really made great connections with a ministry, and then they have a change of leadership, or their ministry even takes a different direction. So we have to change with them, and so that's part of the reason why we can't make a catalog of all of our products, or even why the online store has a challenge, because what we can get one day, for example, these seeds from Ecuador, our opportunity to get these seeds seed necklaces has changed, and so we do have a constant challenge of knowing how to market our goods without being able to be certain that we'll get them again. The first meeting that Katie and Sherry and I had as a team, we had spent some time praying, and during this prayer time, God gave us the word overflow. It came out of Corinthians, and we were delighted with how the Lord had put this all together and put it on our hearts at the same time. And from that came what we have termed then our overflow ministry. Because of our status as a small business, donations that we make to an organization are not considered expenses. Don't try to get too caught up in that. But the idea was that we still had some money left over that we could give away, and so we wanted to be able to bless groups that perhaps we weren't buying any product from. So one thing that just happened that was so exciting to us on our trip back to, or trip to Southeast Asia, when we were in Laos, we had the opportunity to meet with a missionary, a single gal. I think she's about my age, and she and a blind Laotian woman have started just an incredible ministry to prisoners in Laos. And we heard from another source that wasn't even connected with these gals that they are single-handedly feeding and caring for well over 200 prisoners. What an amazing ministry, going into places of such darkness. I was in the prison in Ecuador visiting and came out of it just overwhelmed with the darkness, the lack of beauty, the lack of light and anything good. And so here are these two women that go in on a regular, consistent basis and offer hope and companionship and love and friendship. There's such a destitution of not just body, but of soul and spirit. And they're going in on a regular basis with the love of Jesus. But they're not selling any product. So how could Mercy Market help them? And that's where the overflow ministry came in. And so when we met Carolyn and saw what she was doing, it just brought us such joy to be able to use some of our overflow money to bless her ministry. And so from the beginnings of Mercy Market, where I had to cash a check before I could order the next product, now by the grace of God, we have at the end of the year opportunity to bless others that are even outside of our ministry circle. And that is also where some of that overhead goes when we charge above the price that we pay for an item. So if you're in a situation as hopefully a potential seller, and people ask, does 100% of the money go to help this individual? You need to honestly say no, but we're helping many people with the generation, with these sales. And so it's just an exciting thing to be able to share with you about our overflow ministry. Let's talk a little bit about displaying and when you're actually at an event. Now, events can be everything from craft fairs to a church bazaar. We've set up in foyers of churches. We've been in parks. But wherever you're at, you're going to have a table, and it's really great to be identified as people walk by. This is an example. If we have the space, this is my favorite thing to bring, where people can at a glance see who we are, who we're trying to help, gives a scope of all the countries that we're working with. Of course, we don't expect yours to look exactly the same, but we'd be happy to supply you with photos, but something that immediately identifies that you're not just another craft table, or you aren't maybe even a member of the church, but that you're there representing Mercy Market, and our goal is to help meet the needs of the poor and oppressed through the sale of products from their area. So this would be an example of a display board. So when we're setting up for a display, we're trying to use a variety of heights and items that would catch people's eyes. We don't want everything just flat. So you'll see here that we've used a basket for displaying scarves, bowls, baskets, tins work great for jewelry. I like to buy these old suitcases. We take our product to the show in the suitcases and then use the suitcase for a display. Or maybe you'll have a board that you can set upright to also hang different items on. We often group items like in kind, not necessarily by the country. So I might have a variety of scarves in the same basket, or in this case, a variety of purses in the same tub. I find that more shoppers are interested in item versus, oh, I want a product from Asia, so they go to the Asia corner. But however you think it looks great is certainly up to you. We're not trying to tell you exactly how to do it. We just wanted to give you a few ideas. Always cover your table with something. We use black cloth because it just is so much more neutral, but also really highly colored fabric. This one coming from Africa. Really gives a great look. So as people are looking across, especially at a craft fair, use something that'll catch people's eyes in color, and differentiations in height will do that. One other item when it comes to display is jewelry, and what you're going to do with jewelry, because that is one of the biggest sellers and takes a lot of space if you're going to lay it out flat. So Sherry designed this for us, and it works really great. You can see it's portable. Nice, huh? And yet it gives us the opportunity to display a lot of jewelry. So we are struggling with how to tag it. That's always an issue. We like when a shopper comes by that every time they pick up an item they know where it's from and where the product, who the money is helping. Not so easy to do on a little piece, on a little tag here on the jewelry. But I just wanted to show you another way that we are able to display a lot of jewelry in a small space. Again, use your own creativity, use your own imagination. We're not trying to tell you how to do something. And if you have some great ideas, feel free to share it with us. You just have to have it portable. And for most of us, we're trying to fit it in a little car. So those are some of the factors that go into how we choose how to display our products. The fact that you are watching this video says that you have a heart for the poor and needy around the world, and that you are interested in partnering with us is an honor to us. Our hope is that as God continues to give us opportunity, we can expand throughout the United States. Our selling has been pretty centrally located to Montana, and Denise's, my connections to Minnesota. But recently we've had opportunities to send boxes out, and now we're hoping that some of you that watch this video will want to partner with us and make a commitment to selling throughout the year. So thank you for doing your part to care for the poor and needy. We know that in a remarkable expression that is hard for us to grasp, God said that whatever we do to those that are struggling, to those that are destitute, to those that are lonely and hungry and poor, we are doing to Him. So man, we have the opportunity to love God in a very tangible way. And Mercy Market is just one of those ways. But it is a way that God's given us. And so the three of us are delighted to be a part of it and would welcome you if that would be the way that God would choose you to follow. We know that this video is pretty brief and may not have answered even half of your questions. But it's just the beginning of what we hope will be a great connection with you. And as you have questions about what you've heard about today, or you want further explanation, we also have the handbook that you can refer to and our phone numbers. The three of us would be delighted to talk to you at any time to further explain our heart, our vision, and the way we operate Mercy Market. We want to be an open book, and so please feel free to contact us about any question that you might have. I want to just thank you again for your interest in partnering with us. We are a small-scale group. We don't know the directions the Lord's going to take us. From the very beginning, I had a strong sense from that sitting at the Rocket Burrito that this was God's calling on my life for now. And so we are being faithful with the skills, with the gifts, with the opportunities. We meet together, we pray together, we have vision of a future, but all along keeping in mind that this is God's ministry. And so as you think about partnering with us, pray about if this is really where God would want you to be, and then do it in your giftedness. And don't judge success by how much money did we make. Don't apologize. We've had sales that have been off the charts great that we just rejoice in. And we've had some lousy sales, $64 sales that would be prone to make one discouraged if we weren't just being faithful to where God has called us. So don't be afraid of small venues. You don't know who you're going to meet. And sometimes our purpose in going is just to bless those that are around us, or maybe to speak a word, to share a statistic. Part of what we want to do as Mercy Market is make people aware that there is a great need and there is a great God with a heart for those people. And so I just wanted you to be sure you heard from us. We're not about big numbers. We're not going to be judging your success or your involvement based on how much you sold. Just go out there and love on people and be a living testimony that we serve a God who has a heart for the poor and needy. Thanks.